So Konami just released something quite toxic. And when I say toxic, I mean incredibly toxic. What if I told you that Konami just gave the best deck in Master Duel the ability to give your opponent a card that literally says, "You cannot summon"? Yep, there's no catch to this. That's literally what they just did. Alright, so before we get into the new support, just a reminder, if you enjoyed today's video and see more content just like this in the future, especially if you're a returning viewer, as apparently about 50% of the people watching this are even subscribed to the channel, yet nearly all of you are returning viewers who have seen my content before. So if you find yourself keep coming back to the channel and see more content just like this in the future, remember to leave a like on this video and consider subscribing to the channel down below. Alright, let's get into the new cards. So the latest secret pack has given us some pretty bonkers support in the form of 3 brand new cards. The first one being your Branded Banishment. This card is essentially a Monster Reborn, and it's also a Sewer Poly. It's also searchable since it's a branded card. You can simply set it using your Albion. This card can target one Despian monster or one level 8 or higher fusion monster in your graveyard, special summon it. Then you can apply the following effect. Fusion summon one level 8 or higher fusion monster from your extra deck by banishing fusion materials listed on it from either field. So it's essentially, like I said, a special summon from a card back from the graveyard like Monster Reborn, and it can also be used as a Super Poly. So if you're in a mirror match or against any deck that has light or dark cards, you'll be able to summon Starving Venom, you're able to summon your Predaplant, Dragostocopelia, or however you pronounce this card, you can summon out your Masquerade. All the normal Super Poly targets are now summonable off a searchable trap card. Next up we have the deck's brand new boss monster, Alba Lenatus. This card is bonkers if your opponent is playing a dragon deck. Basically, this card takes 1 Fallen of Albaz plus 1 or more dragon monsters. Keep that in mind. 1 or more, so you can use as many dragon monsters as you like for this card. Cannot be used as fusion material. Must be either fusion summoned or special summoned by sending the above cards from any monster zones to the graveyard. So essentially, you can just set your Fallen of Albaz face down, then if your opponent is playing a dragon deck and they've got a full board of dragons, you can take every single dragon on their field and just summon out this big card in their place, as long as you have a Fallen of Albaz to use as material. You don't need to use Fallen of Albaz's effect to fusion summon, you can just summon it out. It is that simple. This card then will just absolutely OTK the shit out of your opponent. This card can attack monsters a number of times each battle phase, up to the number of materials used for it, so if you used your opponent's entire board, they're just dead. Once per turn during the end phase, if this card is in the graveyard because it was sent there this turn, you can add 1 Polymerization normal spell or Fusion normal spell from your deck to your hand. So it's also, just like a Albion, you can use it with your Mirror Jade to search for your branded fusions at the end of your turn. Very similar to this card's effect. It can also be used to add your Polymerizations to your hand, but keep in mind it can't search for Sewer Poly. So it can search for branded fusion and your Polymerization for follow-up during your next turn. The final new addition to this deck list, and by far the most toxic new addition, is going to be your Branded Expulsion. This card is very gross. Tribute 1 fusion monster, then target 2 non-fusion monsters that are banished and or in either graveyard, special summon both monsters, 1 on each field. If you tributed a fusion monster that mentions Fallen of Albaz as material to activate this card, you can special summon both monsters to your field instead. We don't want to do that. In defense position, you can activate 1 per turn. So keep in mind it's a branded card, so once again you can set it off using your Albion's effect after you've banished it using your Mirror Jade's effect. So it's very easily searchable and you'll get it turn 1 at most games. Once it's out, you can then tribute any fusion monster you have on the field, probably your Mirror Jade, to then set or special summon out and Edu to your opponent's side of the field. Now this card has a lot of card text, you can basically ignore all of it, all you need to worry about is that very first line. You cannot summon monsters. That's right, you're giving this thing to your opponent. They can't summon any monsters that turn. They're done. And keep in mind, if you summoned out a Mirror Jade, for example, using your Aluba, you just special summoned an Aluba to your side of the field, search for a branded fusion, and give your opponent one of these. They just have to skip their turn. Pass back to you, you branded fusion. You kill your opponent. Essentially, one of the most toxic new cards has just been added to this deck list. Alright guys, that's going to do it for the new support for this deck list. Now it's time to show you some examples of how you can use these cards. Alright, time to show you the standard lock. So the standard lock is pretty damn simple. It's going to look very similar to your stock standard branded plays, but with a slight difference. So first of all, as per usual, activate Aluber. Search for Branded Fusion. Then you can activate your Branded Fusion. This will then summon out your Libellion by using your Fallen of Albaz and a copy of Edo. So slightly different to your normal plays, just make sure you put Edo in the graveyard. Summon out Libellion. Libellion's effect can now discard a card from your hand to then do a fusion summon. Of course, going into your standard Mirror Jade. Then as per usual, because we want an Albion search effect to set a card for our opponent's turn, we can then banish a copy of Albion from our extra deck using our Mirror Jade to banish our own card on the field. Then we go into the end phase. Albion's effect procs. Then set a copy of Branded Expulsion to the field. Turn on the toggle for our opponent's standby phase. Activate our card. Our opponent's draw phase, whatever. Tribute off our Mirror Jade, and special summon out your 2 cards to the field. Now, keep in mind, it's about to have a little bug in a second. This text here, it's not shown because it's a bug. I'm pretty sure it's a bug anyway. It's asking you whether or not you want to summon them both to your field, so you just say no. This one you're going to summon to your opponent's side of the field, obviously, because you want them to have the card. Then onto your own field, you can summon out your Despia, which will give you a search for a copy of whatever you like. If you don't have Branded Fusion, whatever you want to search for, just search for it. Then it's your opponent's turn. As you can see, they can't really do anything. You can pop my card, and then he just has to pass. This is obviously against an AI, but you get the picture. This card literally just says, you cannot summon, so he literally can't do anything. Alright, this replay is simply going to be an example of me showing you how to summon out your big, giant new fusion monster if your opponent just has a shit ton of dragons. All you need is a Fallen of Albaz. Now keep in mind, this duel was completely set up. This is just a random ass duel. I just got someone in my Discord to just summon 1 billion dragons, so I can just show you how this works. Now keep in mind, he has 1 billion negates on the field, all of which do not matter, as you don't actually use the fusion summon effect of your Fallen of Albaz. You just need it on the field. So let me show you. So first thing we do is we're just going to set it. This is also important because it means in certain toggle situations, they don't actually give your opponent a response when you set a monster. So I'm just going to set my Fallen of Albaz, and with it face down, I can still fusion summon. Fusion summon every single card in this field. All those monsters, all those negates, whatever effects they are, they're all completely gone. All for just 1 card. So if you're ever against a dragon deck whilst playing Albaz now, you're going to have a really good time. Also keep in mind, if you had a bunch of other monsters left on the field, this card could attack each of those monsters up to the number of fusion materials. So if you still had like 3 monsters left, you could still attack into each of them that many times as well. Alright, third and final replay. This one's going to be a basic example of just me fusion summoning during my opponent's turn using their field, using the brand new trap card. Effectively, basically like using a sewer poly. So we're going to activate our Branded Fusion, summoning out our dude. Literally the exact same combo as you do normally. Exactly the same except for the Aluber search. So, same stuff as before. Searching your Branded Fusion off your dude. Activate. Summon out your Libellion, using your Despian Tragedy in combination with your Albaz. Exact same stuff as normal. Discard a card, do a fusion summon, give yourself a search. Doesn't matter what we're discarding because it's an example. Doesn't matter what we're searching because it's an example. Maybe search some follow-up for the following turn. Let's give ourselves one of these. And fusion summon into your Mirror Jade. And as per usual, Mirror Jade's effect is going to be banishing the card on the field. Using your Albion. This will give you a search for your brand new trap card. Summoning out your branded Brand of Banishment. Alright, now we just wait for our opponent to summon a light or a dark monster or something you can normally Sewer Poly. Alright, what's he gonna summon? You can also just use it like a standard monster reborn, but in this case he's gonna summon out a Zeradius, which is a light monster. Now I like that light monster, so I'm going to use it as a Sewer Poly target. Summoning out my Despian Tragedy. Light monster, dark monster, so we can fusion summon straight into a copy of your Masquerader, which takes obviously a 1 Despian monster plus 1 light or dark monster. And that's a very simple example of just how I can just summon out a card using my opponent's field. Obviously, you also saw I could activate the trap card whenever I wanted at the start of the turn, because it can also just be used as a monster reborn if your opponent actually has no cards to use as Sewer Poly targets, for example. So it's just a nice trap card to include in the deck list. I think most of the time you'll actually search for this card if you happen to already have your quick play spell that uses your fusion summoning. I forgot the name of it, but you know which one I mean. The card you normally search for Albion that you normally set to go into your Chimera and all that stuff. If you already have that card in hand, so you don't need to search for it, you might as well search for your other Disruption Trap in case your opponent is playing a light or a dark deck. Or if you're in a tournament setting and you know your opponent's going to be playing a light or a dark deck, you can just search for the trap card anyway, because you can just know it's the mirror match, and you can just cheese the fact that it's a mirror match. Alright guys, that's it for today's replays. Hope you guys enjoyed them. If you did, make sure you like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff, and hope to see you guys in the next one. Laters.
Hey, big brother, can I watch SpongeBob?
Shut up, Mokuba. I'm busy flagging YouTube videos to compensate for the fact that I have an extremely small penis.
Oh.